Okay, so welcome everyone. Quick reminder, what we're doing here, 15 minutes of positivity. Every Monday through Friday, just 15 minutes. The idea is for us all to just take a break, hit the pause button, and then activate those parts of our brain that help us feel well. This is open and free to anyone and everyone who wants to join. So if you have friends that you think might benefit from this, please invite them. If you have therapists that may have other, clients that could use this, just start spreading the word. The more the merrier. I think community is such a key part of our healing process. And today's Monday, so want to do Mindfulness Monday. Before we get into it, I just want to remind us of what we're actually doing here and why this works. So this fundamentally what we're doing is self-directed positive neuroplasticity. And here's how this works or why this works. So our brain, when we're born, we basically have the number of neurons that we're going to have for most of our life. There is such a thing as neurogenesis, and then there's also things like Alzheimer's where we start losing our capacity. But let's assume for the most part, we have about 90 to 100 billion brain cells in our neocortex called neurons. The way we experience life and ourselves and behaviors and emotions and all of that has more to do with how those neurons communicate with each other. And so here's what's fascinating about this process, especially when we're born with this set of neurons, and basically we're very much a blank slate. So what you see here on the left, this is sort of a representation of what the neuronal and synaptic density of a newborn's brain looks like. So they got a bunch of neurons and they're not really connected, right? It's just a blank slate. By about 1 month, what's increasing here is, the stringy spaghetti-like things are these synaptic connections between the neurons. So those neurons are all starting to, some neurons, by the way, have, by the time we're adults, have as many as 10,000 connections to a single neuronal cell. So it's truly a magical, wonderful thing. By about 9 months, you can see the synaptic density it's exploding, right? So you can imagine this newborn over the 9 months, depending on what this newborn is experiencing repeatedly in the environment that he or she is growing up in, the brain is just picking up, these experiences and is basically saying, got it, up so that I can handle or be engaged in this environment that I seem to be growing up in. Like what happens by 2 years, right? The synaptic density is just has really dramatically increased. Now what's interesting is by the time we become adults, so from a neurologic standpoint, this is about our mid-20s is when things are quote unquote this initial sort of burst of neuroplastic changes starts slowing down a little bit. By the time we're in our mid-20s, the thing to point out here is notice how there's actually a reduction between, let's say, 2 years and by the time we're adults, there are actually fewer synaptic connections. But what happens is the synaptic connections become more intense, or they become more well formed, right? So you go from having lots and lots of little country roads to having a few really well built highways. The good news and bad news is that if what most of our infancy, toddler, school age, adolescence has involved a lot of repetitive experiences of depression, anxiety, ruminations, obsessive compulsive, type behaviors. Well, those are the highways that we've now formed, right? So the good news is we can intentionally reverse that. And here's how we do that. So this idea of, why do we get together and do these practices on a daily basis? It's because presumably there's something that we all want to change, or we want to reinforce a different way of being, right? And so there's a process here where we say, okay, I have an intention where I'm doing these Monday sessions, or I'm getting ketamine, or I'm going to see a psychotherapist because I want something to change. So there's an intentionality behind it. And that needs to, at some point, translate into action and behaviors. So I need to start doing something different than I have been doing before. And then ideally, I need to begin doing it frequently enough that I can begin to refer to it as a habit, right? So meditating once a month is probably not going to cut it. Meditating 2, 3, 4 times a week starts feeling like a habit, and we actually activate those synapses over and over again. And now we have what I would call a practice. And practice, like anything, whether you're practicing, to play your instrument better, or you want to become more mindful or practice loving kindness, whatever it might be, the more we practice that, once we have a practice, there's this sense of, this is my new normal. This is really familiar to my brain and my subjective experience, that I can actually look at this and say, this is who I've become, right? So the more we practice kindness, gratitude, attention, focusing our attention, the more we practice these things, we go from this concept of like, this is what I would like, to doing it. And the secret ingredient here is actually doing it repeatedly over and over again. So that's frankly the hard part in my experience. It's not that we don't know what we want to do, it's that actually doing it is difficult. And so that's why presumably we get together and do this. Okay, so today we're going to do mindfulness. Just a quick reminder of what mindfulness is. It's this intentional state of awareness. So we close our eyes and we bring our attention to a place of our choosing, which is in the present moment. And then the hardest part about this process is without judgment. So whether you notice sad thoughts or happy emotions or whatever sensations may be you might be experiencing in your body, the goal is to just practice just being with that, right? Those are the synapses that we want firing, is our capacity to just be mindful, be present, and lose the active judgment, or this is bad, or I don't want this, or I want something else. Let's do that for the next 5 minutes or so, and start by closing your eyes. I like to start by focusing my attention on my feet. So notice your feet in contact with the ground. I'm not wearing shoes right now, so it's really easy for me to wiggle my toes, and I can feel the ground. And the cool thing about that is this is happening right here, right now. And it's very obvious and apparent to me that I am in this moment sitting in a chair, wiggling my toes, touching the ground. And that's basically all that's happening right now. As a mentor of mine once said, everything else beyond that is just a story. It's just something that our brain is narrating. And then as you notice your feet on the ground and your contact with your chair, you can bring your attention to the telltale signs that your body is breathing. How do you know you're breathing right now? And what you might notice is cool air entering your nostrils, passing through your throat, down into your lungs, your belly expanding and contracting, your chest expanding and contracting, your shoulders rising and falling. That's what I mean with the telltale signs of your body breathing. And see if you can pick one of those. It doesn't matter which one. It could be your nostrils, your belly, shoulders, doesn't matter. And bring your full attention to the cycle of breath in that part of your body. Just a reminder, in order to do what you're doing right now, in order for you to focus your attention on this part of your body where you're feeling breath, it means that there's a collection of neurons that are connecting with each other through these synapses in your brain. And the more we activate that, the more familiar this experience becomes to us, the easier it becomes. And then the more it is who we become. And if you notice your mind wandering or feeling distracted, just know that that's totally normal. And when you notice it, just bring your attention back to that part of your body that you chose to focus on, to feel breath. The cool thing about neuroplasticity is that it's really not that complicated. It's almost like the hardest thing for, in my experience, is just to remember to actually do it. Is to practice, is to cultivate that habitual engagement of those synapses. Just keeping your attention on your breath just for a few more seconds. Noticing your wandering mind, noticing any aversion or resistance that you have to your mind wandering, and just reminding yourself this is the non-judgmental part, is just to kind of hang back and say, yeah, of course, that's what my mind does. It thinks, constantly thinking. What's it like to just do that without judgment? Then maybe your toes, reminding your present moment. Bring your awareness back to the sensation of sitting in your chair. And then go ahead and take an intentional deep breath in, filling up your lungs. And on the exhale, go ahead and open your eyes. And then just notice everyone else, on all our brothers and sisters wanting the same thing, right? We all want to feel well. We all want to feel connected and loved. And I can't thank you guys enough for participating in this. Keep growing. It becomes more and more of a just a, again, a way of being, like a normal default existing in the world. And in my experience, this is the antidote to a lot of our mental stress and emotional stress that we experience. So thank you guys for coming. I'll stick around a few more minutes if anyone wants to chat, ask questions, or explore things. Otherwise, see you. Take care, everyone.